That is a good question.
Hopefully this was it.
Yeah, he said this year, but they also said November. Last year. By the time it gets here, we're going to have to trade it in because it's 5 years old.
Yeah. We want the balance of the factory warranty from delivery forward.
Well, the sentence is out money. I thought maybe that would help because the other, the chassis company, they put out money to internationally buy it. So they're holding it back.
Well, that's
Yeah, I'm not paying that. We don't have a truck.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if we get a warranty from delivery date. That's something to check on.
Yeah, well, it's got to shows up on the warranty.
Well, yeah, it's never been titled, it's never transferred to us, so it should be from delivery date, not manufacturing date.
Yeah. Yeah, remind me again next February. It shows up.
No, I'll remind you when they deliver it.
Yeah. That's a good question.
No, but it should be. I know we bought fire trucks that were chassis date and delivery date.
Yeah, it takes 3 years now.
All right, guys. Ready? I'll lead the order. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, since Stephanie Burns not here, I'll do a quick roll call. We got John Boothford. Here. John Frazier. Here. Dan Resnick. Here. And myself, Eric Ross. Show that Stephanie Vernon is absent. Comments from the public. Anybody sign up?
Check. Well, did anybody sign up? No.
Okay. Comments of the supervisors. We'll start off with Mr. Frazier. None. Mr. Resnick?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Buford?
Nothing right now.
And myself is nothing. Can I get an approval motion for the meeting minutes, May 13th, 2025? You guys had a chance to review those?
I have reviewed them and I have to approve.
Can I get a second?
1 second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain since I wasn't.
Okay. Correspondence, Mr. Strelick.
A couple of items. County Department of Planning reviewed our zoning ordinance as we're required to do and gave us a thumbs up. Said we did a good job. And also we received from the County Land Bank their 2024 annual report. They only sent us one each of the fancy, glossy versions, so if anybody's interested, I have one. And it's my annual time to say that while we don't get as much from the land bank as places like Menneson and Jeanette, obviously, we absolutely have gotten our money's worth and continue to help us on some code violation issues. So, before my time to join them, but it was a good decision. So I have unless there's any questions, manager's report. Yes. So congratulations to the winners of the primary. Something that I did in a previous job, which was I didn't reach out to council members until they won the general election, even if it was obvious that they won. Although if anybody who won the primary wants to reach out to me, certainly happy to pass along information as I do to any resident. So that's my plan on that, unless the board disagrees and instructs me otherwise. Something we've been waiting for a year or 6. Ligonier Beach Study Committee meeting, or not study committee, but the public meeting is June 18th, the Ligonier Valley High School auditorium at 6 p.m. So I hope all the people who've been beating your ears for the last couple of years show up and pass along their, well, what they've been beating your ears about for the last couple of years. That's all I have.
And the man of the hour just arrived.
I wouldn't say that. The little bit I have to report, the Ramsey Road Bridge, we finalized the hydraulics on that, at least the preliminary hydraulics, and it does look like a full replacement where box culvert would be the selected structure. But the size of it won't allow us to keep the existing abutments, so it would be a more significant project than we were trying to make. So that's that. Hydro Greens obviously proceeding until the stormwater aspect of that will happen this week. And I got word the high school's going to move forward with their baseball field, so we'll be taking they'll look at that on a weekly basis.
Anything else? Any questions? No? Solicitor's report, Mr. Rudock.
I have nothing to report, I'll just chime in as some of these agenda items, especially the planning commission amendment issue.
Rick, zoning code.
Pleasure to be before the board again today. My report is in front of you. One thing I would like to make note of is I did manage to clear one of my code complaints. The gentleman to get his permit for the structure he didn't want to originally have. Also, it is on there, the reorientation of the baseball fields for the high school. Because they're resubmitting their building permit because they've made some modifications on it. They've removed a few things due to the budgetary constraints. So they are proceeding forward with their zoning and grading permit to start on the prep work. As well. I'll take any questions.
Any other questions?
Rick? Public Works is delayed. I gotta call a tree down on Vets at 3:45, which is 20 minutes away, so he should be back.
Okay.
But,
That's
why it's delayed.
We'll postpone that till later if we adjourn. I asked Michael before the meeting, just for the record, about the 10-ton, which saying right now it's going to be upfitted in June.
Start in June.
Okay. And finance, Beverly.
Do you have the new form of the report in front of you? It's speaking to things in dollars amount instead of a percentage amount. Hopefully it's a little bit clearer than that report. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Any questions on that? Looked over the complete report. It looks good. Thank you. Are there any questions?
No.
All right.
Thank you, Beverly. We appreciate your thoroughness, and I think you've done a great job.
Since Supervisor Verna is not here, I'll handle the treasury report, which we have a detailed one in front of us. You do the summary, Beverly?
No, that's, the fund balances are the first meeting of the month usually, unless they don't take on time. So just the bill pay list on the treasurer's report, of which there are two.
Yes. We have one coming out of the general fund for $72,5533. And the other one looks like the Ligonier Beach Property Fund for Mackin for $1925.54. Can I get a motion to?
Okay. How many more bills are we going to get from Mackin before we see a report?
Off the top of my head, as a guess, so subject to change, once a month between now and December, or January, I suppose, so go through December and January.
Once a month. Okay, thank you.
Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make that motion.
Second. And second with John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Pay the bills. All right. Unfinished business. We have ordinance 2025-OR-01, amending the holding tank ordinance.
Right, so still not ready for final approval because we haven't advertised it. At the last meeting, requested we make some changes, so those changes have been made. Happy to discuss any further. As a reminder, this was started by the board. The board requested me and Rick, and ended up being Dan, to look into this. It's not something that we brought to the board. This came from the hydro green discussions and their holding tank agreements. So we can move forward, or we can not. We can just keep doing what we were doing.
The only question I think that we had, I don't know what the fees, changes to the fees.
There's a separate fee schedule. The fees are not in this draft ordinance, and the fees are set in a separate schedule.
Correct. The 1997 ordinance said it was going to be $25, well, $25 today, so what it used to be. So I recommended removing that fee from the ordinance, as we should from any ordinance that has a fee, moving it over to the fee schedule, which is later on the agenda.
Well, I have reviewed this, and all of the concerns I had at the last meeting have been taken care of in the draft also. accomplish this and to get better control of holding tank situation in the township with an inspection process.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said, because supervisors did request the planning commission, their input. The planning commission has no input.
Motion to advertise ordinance 2025-OR-01.
I'll make that motion.
Dan made the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Ron second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, we'll have the next meeting ready for final action.
Sometime in the future, do we get a list of all the holding tanks that we know of whenever,
It was in the last, you weren't here for the meeting. It was in the last meeting? When was that?
When Dorigo was here, I think.
Yeah.
That's been a couple of months.
Yeah, I can certainly supply
But it-
that, Jim, that's not a problem.
email to me or whatever.
Yes. And then we have ordinance 2025-OR-02, zoning code amendments.
Right, so this is as recommended by the planning commission, prior to approval by the board. We need to hold a public hearing, we need to advertise, and we need to send the changes to the county. Well, we've heard back from the county, and depending on how Longbridge goes on their new business, we may be scheduling a public hearing for zoning changes anyway, and before the July 8th meeting. So maybe we should hold this and see what the board wants to do with Longbridge. Certainly no final approval tonight.
And this was just the changes that was supposed to be around the fence. And then it, well, the 25-02.
That's what prompted us to look at it.
That was
Yes.
related to the fence. And then you were moving a couple other things around in there.
Right. Happy to walk through the individual changes if the board would like.
What I read is some housekeeping amendments, some clarifying amendments, and then the fence issue. I didn't see anything else that should occupy the supervisor's time, but I mean, it's certainly easy to miss a nuance or a meaning, but I don't see any other issues or any reason to stop action on it. Do we need, you said we need to advertise and hold a public hearing?
Correct.
I'm okay with this the way you're talking through it.
Yeah, it's not nearly as exciting as the one that was before you a year ago.
But what you're suggesting, Michael, is if we're gonna make a change to the zoning maps and the ordinance, we should do all of that at one time and have one hearing and advertise it all together as opposed to separate.
Correct, and based on Longbridge's timeline, that would call for a public hearing. I recommend July 8th, prior to us being here anyway, because we're here anyway.
All right. Do we need a motion for that? Move this one forward to the July 8th? Public hearing and then we advertise.
Yeah, that'd be best.
Okay, perfect. Then we don't need a motion then for this. Correct?
Well, motion to have the
Public meeting, but not to advertise.
we need a motion for the public meeting?
Just
Okay.
on, not on bridge yet, just on this.
Yes.
Yes.
Then can I get a motion for a public hearing July 8th at 6:30 for ordinance 2025-OR-02 zoning code amendments?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, public hearing on July 8th at 6:30. New business, resolution 2025-R-04, holding tank inspection fee.
The board may want to hold this till the next meeting to be approved at the same time as the ordinance, but since we're removing the fee from the ordinance, because again, $25 in 1997 is not the same as today, recommend, and actually this recommendation comes from our sewage enforcement officer, Mike Dorigo, that the fee would be his rate, minimum of 1 hour. But if he's there longer, well, He's gonna charge the township, of course, so we should pass along those costs to whoever's getting the inspection done.
So what do you recommend? What's the fee per hour?
$95, but it will change year to year. So next year, his fees go up, this fee will go up too. That's why I wanted to be
Go over
in
the schedule at the beginning, as part of the reorg, don't you review the fee schedule?
Yeah, I try to get it done the same time as the budget, but sometimes, especially with the SEO and Apex, they'll wait.
Either way, I think it's okay if we set it at what Durango's current rate is. I can't imagine we're gonna get caught in like a month or two of him updating his rate,
Oh.
it's gonna matter.
Correct, yes, we do that December, January, but yeah, the beginning of the year, correct.
I have a question, looking at this from the point of view of somebody who is applying for a holding tank, say a new commercial business, their land will not work, they need a holding tank. How do they calculate the fee? How do they write a check?
Ooh, that is a question for a sewage enforcement officer, because as far as I'm concerned, we just pass along his fees.
Right, I'm not opposed to that, I'm just saying, the rest of the fees on the schedule, it's pretty easy to calculate the amount of the check. This one, it's a little bit difficult for me to understand. I'm not trying to, I'm not opposed in any way to doing a pass-through of the fee. I would like it to be as clear as we can make it from the point of view of the business person or whoever's writing the check. They, at 95, it's just a starting point.
And Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, when this new holding tank goes in, that would fall under like a new plan review. So it's a flat fee of significantly more, like 300,
Yeah, if
400.
they're putting it in, they would have to do their whole fee process, which is application fee, review fees and all that. After
What
that,
would you recommend then that we say for the annual inspection fees? Right now, this says hourly rate, $95 with a minimum fee of 1 hour. Again, I'm not opposed to it, but could we get a little bit of clarification by saying that the average inspection fee ranges from 95 for 1 hour to 3 hours, or how can we clarify this?
So Dorigo told me, and this is not necessarily clarification for the resolution in front of you, but perhaps to answer your question, it takes him half an hour to inspect, but also additional time to schedule the inspection, to drive to the inspection. So he was comfortable with charging a minimum hour fee. So that's how we arrived at the hour. Now that,
You could collect a flat fee maybe on the high side and then refund any. I don't know if that's more administrative hassle.
We get a bill from Mike for his time. So when we get the bill from Mike, why can't we just notify the property owner? The risk might be that we go and do an inspection and the property owner doesn't pay. Put a lien on their property, then if they're not gonna pay for the inspection. It's $95.
This fee only comes when he inspects it, not when he's putting it in. That's your
This is the annual inspection.
yeah.
annual inspection fee.
We don't have data on how long it takes because we haven't been inspecting them. I think that's part of why this has now come up. So
Do a minimum of 95, but not to exceed.
I wouldn't put any not to exceed. I have no idea. Maybe Mike schedules and goes out there and the homeowner doesn't show up and Mike has to show up again and the homeowner's gonna pay for a second trip. Or, you know what I mean, the inspector needs to get access. Pardon me?
They're never residential, these are all commercial, these have to be commercial.
Even a commercial business. I mean, I don't know that all of them are staffed with people, that True Green or whatever, I don't know that they're staffed there all day.
You're right.
Your concern is that someone's gonna get a surprise big bill, maybe, right?
But
That's
I
what
think
you're
most commercial businesses are probably used to service people coming out and saying it's a minimum hour trip charge, you know what I mean, and then a fee on top of it.
all right, if everyone else thinks this is fair,
I mean,
I'm happy to.
I'm all for it in future years if we have some good data on it and we know that on average Mike's able to get them done in an hour and a half. I totally agree. Having a flat fixed fee, have the people pay it up front would be simpler. But I think for now, we don't have that information, so I'd rather pass it along. I don't think it's too burdensome administratively.
Well, it's certainly better to have a little vagueness and not have the taxpayers get knocked for anything with this, so let's leave it the way it is.
Mr. Foss, do you have any idea what is entailed in holding tank inspections, since you're kind of in that arena of work with your company?
It's basically an observation that it's there, it's functioning as it should, and it's not. What ends up happening is people will shortcut it or pass it through, which would be an illegal discharge.
Is it our intention to have the receipts for pumping shown to the person who's doing the inspection at the same time? Is that our intention?
No, I believe the receipts are sent here and saved.
That's what I read.
So the way that I believe what you had outlined to us in Rick's summary was, the receipts get sent here, it's our responsibilities here to be tracking and making sure we're receiving those receipts. Mike's just going out and doing the inspections, correct?
Yes.
So Mike has nothing to do with verifying the receipts at all. That should come to us. We need to be raising an alert if that's not being done. But certainly a good point, if somebody has not had any record of it being pumped, we might want to get a heads up to Mike. You know what I mean, when he heads out.
You know, the ones that aren't being pumped are the ones those are the ones that have been converted to French drain system.
We'll make each of it. So you want to pass that or hold that?
I'd like to pass it at the next meeting,
Okay,
when we pass the ordinance. If that's all right with the board.
Does this need to be advertised?
Does not have only ordinances.
And then next up, we have resolution 2025-R-05, transferring from the general fund into investments.
Right, if my math is right here, I think we can move 300,000 from our day-to-day operating, move it over to investments, try to make a little more money so we can take a little less from our residents. Rates as of a week ago, Pliget, Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, was 4.28 to 4.55, depending on the term. Treasuries were 3.7 to 4.0. CDs through Jane were 4.0 to 4.3, again, depending on the term. And currently in our first Commonwealth, where this money sits, as of today, we're getting 2.5% in our money market.
Okay. Can I get a motion to move money from the general fund to the investments? So moved. Dan, did I get a second?
Second.
Can we make a clarification of the motion to approve resolution 2025-R-05? Right. We're making a motion on the full resolution.
Yes, please.
Correct. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That's the money, Michael.
All right, get on.
Long Bridge map amendment.
So we have someone in the audience who could speak to it, but before he does, a little bit of background. This is obviously the old Long Bridge Station, requesting relief so he can reopen. So it was a commercial building for 90-something years, but because he abandoned, not he, but the use was abandoned for a certain amount of time, I think 3 years, but that's more than our zoning code goes by anyway, so we would need to reapply. We wouldn't let Mosso's Gulf Station reopen the way it used to be. This did go to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission voted for option number 2 based on the packet in front of you, which is to rezone the old Long Bridge Station, the LTMA barn behind it, and then Road Toad around the corner, which is also zoned agriculture. The motion I'd request, or the vote I'd request of the board today, if you're in favor of it, if you don't care, if you need more information, then vote to tell us to get to work, because Rick will have to advertise this, tell all the neighbors, and we'll have to hold a public hearing. If you're dead set against it, vote no today, and we can skip all that steps, because Rick has plenty of other things to do. And again, if there's any questions in particular, the Long
I have
Bridge.
just a general question, general related to taxes. So we're essentially going to be changing the zoning of this to commercial, making the property a bit more valuable. Is there any process that gets reassessed considering that zoning change? When I looked online, it seems like in a lot of other municipalities, when properties are rezoned, that often is followed by reassessment because of the use of the property. I was just curious if that was something that Westmoreland County did.
I know his assessment went up after we issued the permit and he built the garage because it's more valuable as to an actual reassessment.
I just was curious in general, we're talking about changing, you know what I mean, several properties and moving them from what they are currently zoned to a commercial, we're changing the zoning.
I think so.
I think it's the county's.
County does
The
it.
county does the assessments, and I think they're triggered by several things. One would be a building permit. Does the zoning change trigger? I don't think, but I'm not 100% sure.
I was just curious.
Can I get a motion to move forward with proposed relief for the amendment with Long Bridge and the other properties down there?
What are we though, this is, just to say commercial doesn't even clarify, we have more than one commercial type of districts. I think we need to be very explicit.
Just neighborhood commercial.
What type, is it C1 or C2 that we're talking about?
C1.
So we gotta make sure the motion is explicit as to what
Can I
we're
clarify, we're just voting on a hearing? A whole hearing, right? And to do send it to the counties.
Yes.
So to hold a hearing, what are we, just to move forward with whatever we
The
don't know?
process.
The process to do what?
To have a hearing toward amending the zoning ordinance pursuant to that option 2, which is what planning recommended, which is changing the zoning on 3 parcels of property from, what is it, A1 to C1.
Okay, that's all, I wanna make sure we're all clear on what we're, not just, we're voting on that.
And that'll be the subject to the hearing, whether, pros and cons and so forth. And the neighbors will be given, this is statutory requirements, neighbors will be given notice to come to the hearing and say their piece. The owner's certainly here and will present his arguments for it. It's purely a legislative action of this board, so you're under no requirement to grant it, deny it. It's entirely your discretion to do that. You are the lawmakers in this situation, and it's a question of changing the code, changing the zoning.
Is there any other thing I thought about was, because this came up with the property across from the beach, whenever they purchased the old machine shop or whatever, the lawnmower shop, and then they were required to get permits, right, from PennDOT. Is this property, does it already have all of its adequate permits, or does us, changing this zoning, that would be my only other concern. That's a little bit of a dangerous interchange right there. You know what I mean? It was the same concerns we would have that we had with the property across from Ligonier Beach. People having to kind of tightly back out, and should we be looking at any of that with that property? You know what I mean? Considering
That's highway occupancy permits, Ben, isn't it, basically? And that's between the owner and PennDOT, I think.
It is.
Yeah, but we required them to have that, well, if they ever did get it.
That would be part of the permitting
Yeah,
process.
isn't
then
this
when he
just,
goes
this
to
is just to change the zone?
establish.
And then you're gonna go in, if he submits to put whatever he's gonna put in there, he has to go through you for the building permit, right?
Wait a minute though, hang on. You would just need to go to you for what at this point?
The occupancy permit can change the usage of that property from what it is now to what he's trying to do, which is vehicle sales and services. In that process, I would review the parking, because we do have parking rules on that, and ensure that he has all the state and federal permits along with our permit. What we're doing now is just giving him the ability to move forward if we approve all this, to explore
Because his
that.
buildings are already there, but he has no occupancy at this point in time.
That's correct.
So he can't do anything there yet until he gets the occupancy permit.
Other than using for storage, personal storage that they're being used for now.
Let me ask you another question. When you get that permit that he's planning on putting a car dealership or a car,
Kind of like a hot rod shop.
the sell,
Yeah.
is there gonna be any kind of controls over how many cars he has parked along Route 30 and flags that's floating in the air?
The signs and the flags and all that is by our ordinance.
By our-
The parking would be also by ordinance, and the PennDOT highway occupancy permit would have some say in that. Also,
You have to follow all the C1 rules
yes.
that are already in, actually.
And I was just curious, how many square feet is that? What's the size of this lot? Square footage?
This lot is an acre and a half.
How many?
That'd be 5,000 square feet. The total lot size.
Okay, because the minimum in that is 40,000 square feet, so all the lots that we're talking about with the LTMA, the road code, and this one all exceed that?
Yes.
It's real tough, too, that's real narrow.
I would have to.
Well, the minimum lot size for any one is 1.5 acres. So it's not conforming now.
Probably the road that goes over that cliff in the bank.
Yeah, I'm just suggesting that if our whole premise for this is to move it into a category that it does fit. Do you know what I mean? We want to make sure it doesn't fit up the road and make it just non-conforming in C1. Yeah, it's non-conforming now, we'll move it to C1. I just was curious if it complied with the minimum lot size of C1.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and hold the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Let me ask you another question, though, just as a matter of information. Are there other properties in the immediate area that fit the same lot size and adjacency to Route 30 that are not included in this at the current time? I mean, I realize everyone's going to be notified. What I don't want to have pop up at the hearing is somebody saying, I own a 2-acre lot that abuts on Route 30, and I don't want to be included in this, or I do want to be included in this. In other words, are we being sufficiently inclusive when we say these 3 properties, LTMA, Road
I think in that section of Route 30, because the township line's somewhere around Sleepy Hollow or somewhere
Yeah.
on one side, and whatever, and a lot of that's all protected anyway in the gorge. But you have where the driftwood was and so forth, that is a purple area, C1, if you look at zoning map. Idlewild certainly is on both sides of the road. So I think Route 30 is pretty much.
And as far as commercial zoning goes, now those properties on Long Bridge, every one of them is non-conforming because the minimum lot size is 1.5 acres and the largest lot back there is 0.6. However, I don't know if it would be appropriate to rezone homes.
No, I'm not talking.
But we're only zoning changing zoning on 3 specific lots.
It's entirely up to you. You can say no, you can say yes, somebody else comes, you
They're
can
not
say
even
yes.
adjacent, and none of these lots touch each other either. Or just 2 of them, LTMAs and Long Bridge touch. The road code is not connected at all.
Well, I think it's a good idea to move forward. I voted for it. I just wanted, as Rick is going forward with the process, if another landowner says they want to be included in the process, we need to have a very good reason for keeping anybody out of this who meets the same C1 qualification. I think you've already done it. I don't think there are.
Around in the immediate area, no, that's one of the things we did look at. These are very specific properties. They have a history of commercial use. That is the biggest thing we're looking at. We're not just changing properties on a whim. We're changing property that we feel were maybe mislabeled to begin with the commercial history. Now, if somebody comes to me with all that in place, I would certainly listen to them, obviously.
Thank you.
Do we get a vote or just a motion?
And then the only other thing I'll say, keep in mind is too, once we change this, it's changed. Even though this is intended for a hobby car shop, once it's zoned that way, any of the uses in C1 could appear that way. We've seen that before where people come in and what they ask for is completely different than what happens during 6 months later. So just to keep that in mind as you think through this, I try to think through it of all the other options that could be put in C1.
Okay. Russell working plan.
Yes, so this was recommended for approval by the planning commission.
Oh, we did. We voted 5-0.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So Russell Berkey plan, who's sitting in the audience in case there's any questions, but before you ask questions, this is recommended for approval by the planning commission. No new nonconformities are created. 2 existing nonconformities are cured related to setbacks and small and odd-shaped parcel. The 2 enforcement officer has reviewed, and Russ is here if there's any questions.
We appreciate you coming, Russ.
No problem.
Do we have any questions?
I do, so Russ, in a nutshell, there's what, 2 lots now, we're kind of pulling them together and then rezoning. Can you just give me,
Yes.
in a nutshell, that's what my understanding was?
That's what it is, yes. I was gonna put it together and we found out the neighbor has his garage over at line and we're straightening it out.
Okay,
So
so
that's
this
what
is
that little
just-
triangle is for.
Addressing that in this meeting.
Any other questions for Russell? Can I get a motion to approve the Berkeley plan?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Wait a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. LDSD baseball field stormwater agreements.
Right, the next 2 are, well, they're similar. So this board last July approved the land development plan contingent upon meeting the township's financial and regulatory permit requirements. The next 2 things are regulatory requirements. Sign and agree stormwater plan and vote on them separately, please, but the next one's the developer's agreement.
Has our solicitor reviewed both of these agreements?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was almost a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a question that came up. They came in over the flyer.
It took a while, but they say this time they're ready to go.
All right, any questions?
Stormwater, you look at it, good job.
He actually created it for us and sent it to me. I gave him the template, he filled
But
it
they're
in,
wrong.
and sent it back.
The stormwater drawings that have from the township to the school district.
Yeah, if they haven't changed, I mean, we looked at it, like you said, going on a year ago.
Can I get a motion to approve the stormwater agreement?
I'll make that motion.
Dan made it. Can I get a second?
Second.
John, second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then I got a motion to approve the developers agreement. Questions, comments, concerns?
It's the same drawings that they submitted, nothing changed.
Yeah, the agreement basically states they're gonna do what they have in their plan, is what the agreement states basically.
And there's an escrow, I guess.
It says they're gonna state what they're gonna do in their plan.
And
but we
the
were-
agreement states they're just gonna follow their plan that they've submitted to the township.
This agreement also says they have already received permits and approvals from DEP and the Westmoreland Conservation.
We have that all.
That's correct. They've done their homework.
Can I get a motion to approve the developers agreement?
I'll make that motion.
Dan made it. Can I get a second?
Second,
One second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll get back to Lance. Any reports from Public Works?
We got some berming going on up near 5 Points. And other than that, tree and brush cutting, same area, which we should be done with Christner. Another 2 days up there, I would say. Move it over to Austral.
You guys getting everything prepared for current shipping?
Yeah, that's what we're doing for the berm. And we're gonna go on to replacing some pipes, fixing some head walls, doing other things before it still comes in. Or if we could ever get the weather.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain all this week too, tomorrow. So. Any questions for Lance?
Yeah, is the tractor broken or is it running?
No, it's running.
Okay, it's parked at the edge of my property, and I don't mind, it can sit there. I don't want anybody thinking I'm using the tractor for anything.
I've gotten a call about that before, us lending the tractor to people.
Thank you, Lance.
Yep.
Key's not in it, is it? I hope it is. Get that key out.
The key is not in it.
Okay. Executive session. Comments, any comments from the public? Comments of the supervisors, we'll start with on this side this time.
Yes, I had hoped to discuss with Chief Intruder on the record the status of drug testing, police department and the police commission. Since he's not here, I will hold off that issue. I will urge our representatives on the police commission to obtain a status report at the next meeting and to please move that subject forward one way or the other, because I think the residents want to know what we're doing or not doing it.
Dan?
Just want to congratulate our two winners in the primary, Mr. Stoner and Paul Mount, and offer them condolences. So that's all I have.
Mr. Booth?
Nothing.
Mr. Burnham?
Couple of things, sorry that I was late. Meetings in Pittsburgh till 3 o'clock, so commute's longer than an hour and a half. Hey Ben, I had a question, especially while Cindy Brown's here, related to the Perry School pedestrian bridge. So I know we had met initially, we know our funding was a little bit short. Next steps were, one, really sharpen our pencils and kind of put together, some tighter estimates on what we think that budget's gonna be. And then I think it's probably time for us to start to work on fundraising. So Cindy, I guess that's something for you. I wasn't sure who on the school board, would be the best person to contact to work with us on that.
So building and grounds, that chair, so it would be, Ed would not be, Ed's Sutter, because, that's, his job. But building and grounds is Jennifer Grummel. So that is her department as far as building and grounds itself. Fundraising, I would talk to Eric Coates.
Okay, I'll reach out to Eric. But Ben, if we could kind of go through, because it's, if we're going to go and speak to people about, the funding that we need, I'd like to be able to articulate to them, do you know what I mean? Like a little bit of a detailed budget, like how much we anticipate for engineering fees, permitting, how much training is actually the cost of the bridge.
Yes.
I know some of that's in the grant application, but the grant application is kind of written in grant application language a little bit, like I'm looking for something in a little bit of plain English so that we can, have a conversation with people and be able to articulate what was the $1.2 million budget, what all was involved in that. Do we have any opportunities for savings? And then also potentially I'd like to start looking at some other grants, potentially that we might be able to kind of dovetail in as well.
Yeah, we can have some more conversations about that. Honestly, I think right now is a bad time to try to whittle down a budget. We already know we need money, and things are a little bit all over the place right now. I can do an estimate, I can do a description.
Yeah, if there's any, I would be looking for something so that we have something that we can present when we go to somebody and potentially ask for $600,000 or another agency that we're going to seek money for. I'd like to be able to articulate the line items, specific to that.
I don't think we want to whittle it down, but maybe sidewalks, bridge.
Yeah, like to understand, what was the cost of the sidewalks, what's the permitting piece of it, what are just the engineering fee components?
Sure, I can give you a more detailed estimate.
Stephanie, I would suggest too, I don't know if LVEA would give money to that sort of thing. You might want to call Linda Kelp. She's usually our representative at the board meetings, and you might get in touch with the Boyds and see, because they do the Boyds, through the Boyd Foundation, they do all kinds of different venues of, grants for the school district, so you might ask them.
Yeah, and that's, I think, that's where we are now. I think we need to start to reach out. I just hate to go to people and say, we need $1.2 million, and they say, gosh, well, what's that for? And it's like, it's some fees and stuff. we need to be able to, Jenny, articulate that a little bit more tangibly so people can kind of see what we're talking about. Yeah, that was all that I had at this point.
And I have no comment at this time. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned.
Do we have maps to sign?
You do, yes.
Please sign.
Sure.